Before I show some historical accounts and evidence of a few things, I want to express how I feel about the diversity of thought and ideas. I love the fact that all humans have different minds, different leanings, and different groupings. I also love that we can move dynamically into different groupings as we individually adapt to our shifting cultures, because cultures don't remain the same. Cultures are dynamic, unless you're on the Senegalese island and part of that tribe. They're the only people that I see that can preserve their culture by making sure nobody rolls up on their shores and making sure that nobody can interject any new ideas. Now, I also believe that utopians are always the most dangerous people on earth that bring about the greatest amount of pain and suffering in trying to achieve an impossible goal. Some men and women are so arrogant that they believe they can neuter or censor the human to be better than the force that created us intended us to be. They think they can reshape the human as they see fit. And I believe that chaotic and orderly personalities are both a requirement to be a dynamic creature. Two halves that make up a whole. And both sides are built to battle the other, and I view it as a gift from creation. We would become a stagnant, boring creature without these dynamics. We would never change anything, and we'd be much less inventive and exploratory if we were a hive mind. There are a lot of people that believe the left versus right, or liberal versus conservative, is just an illusion. A new modern way made up by people to divide people. They use terms like social construct to claim that it's just an illusion that we made up to be a bunch of knobheads. The same way that they say male and female are just social constructs that we can throw out the window to try something new now. What they tried to do is failing miserably, and now the pendulum is beginning to swing back the other way now, because they went too far into Cuckoo Bananaville. Some people believe that all socio-political groupings and distinctions are just smoke and mirrors. They don't grasp the fact that humans create categories, distinctions, and classifications in the animal kingdom, anthropology, plant kingdom, and all of the things we classify, categorize, and label in the entire cosmos. Of course, we're going to apply that to ourselves. That is part of our nature. We're not a beehive, and we can never be, no matter how hard some people try to force that. Okay, now let's take a journey back in time to read the accounts and descriptions of socio-political factions or political factions in antiquity and even in the deeper ancient world before Christ. Our first stop is the year 1884. This will be a quick stop just to prove that the left acknowledges its own existence, its label, its grouping, and ideology. There you go, fence sitter. The left is a reality and not smoke and mirrors, not a social construct that is modern. It's as real gets, and it is eternal, in my opinion. The labels may be variable, but the personalities are a constant eternally. There's a little bit of programming lingo for you. Now, our second stop is 1700s France, where the terms left-wing and right-wing originated. In that time, the left has been called the party of movement, or liberal, and the right, the party of order, or conservative. So in 1700s, the right was the party of order, law and order, not revolutionaries. The leftist liberal are revolutionaries that want to change everything. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing. But in order to change things, you have to destroy what exists. Now, the right-wing and left-wing terms stem from their physical seating positions where they were separated by an aisle. And the left were the revolutionaries, and the right were the people who were trying to preserve what existed. And not just to preserve it to keep it stagnant, but they didn't want such a wild revolution to where the nation would crumble. They wanted to keep some semblance of order so people don't self-destruct. Now, if we go further back in time, we find the same exact duality of personalities and political strategies playing out in ancient Rome. There was a Roman named Marcus Tullius Cicero. Some people pronounce it Cicero, but it's pronounced usually as Cicero. He was born January 3rd, 106 BCE. He was a writer, scholar, philosopher, and an orator that was one of the most prolific authors and speakers of that culture. It is said that he wrote more than 75% of existing Latin literature. So what exists today of Latin literature of that time, he wrote more than 75% of that. He's quite an amazing ancient man that not many modern men could match in speaking, writing, law, and philosophy, all those things. He seemed like somebody that had a great mind. So I don't know if we're evolving or devolving. We might be devolving. We might be evolving. But as I look at things in history, and then we also see all these megalithic structures all around the world that we can't even build with our technologies today, it's possible we are devolving over time. Because I don't believe aliens built that stuff. I believe humans built all that stuff. Alright, so there was a speech that Cicero wrote. It was called Pro Sestio. So in ancient Rome, there were political factions going at it. One were the Optimates, and one were the Populares. And Cicero describes the Optimates as being honorable, honest, and upright, safeguarding the interests of the state and the liberty of its citizens. He describes the Populares as being not so honorable, and instead engage in failed attempts to cultivate demagoguery. Now, if we look up the definition of demagoguery, it is political activity or practices that seek support by appealing to the desires and prejudices of ordinary people rather than by using rational argument. Now, of course, this man seems to be an Optimate himself or lean towards that sort of personality because he's praising the Optimates and he's being derogatory towards the Populares. But is he wrong? Now, in his assessment of this, we have two political parties. One political party, the Populares, matches with our modern day left and the left of 1700s France, because remember, in 1700s France, the left was a party of movement, or liberal, revolution, change. So I'll just let you make up your own mind on, but if you read online about the Populares and Optimates, the Optimates are related to conservatives by everybody that writes about them. And then the Populares are connected to liberal minds. And I think Cicero was correct, because if you look at the definition of demagoguery, it's political activity or practices that seek support by appealing to the desires and prejudices, basically the emotions of people, their prejudices, like how the left today is so skin color obsessed, while the right is trying to get the left to judge people by their individual character and merit instead of judging people according to their class or skin color or their crotch, what's in between their legs. The left is obsessed with the desires and prejudices of ordinary people, and they don't use rational argument. So the definition of demagoguery is political activity or practices that seek support by appealing to the desires and prejudices of ordinary people rather than by using rational argument. That describes the left to a T. They have no rational argument, and they appeal to your emotions, desires, and prejudices. He nailed it. He nailed the modern left in describing Populares, and the modern right in describing Optimates, or Optimates. So as we observe the political factions of the modern human, to me it's clear that those ancient accounts and observations were accurate, both in Cicero's case and in what they write about in the history of France, where the left is the party of movement, or liberal, and the right the party of order, or conservative. I'm not describing it that way. This is history describing it that way. And you can take it however way you want it. I just see that both of those accounts from 1700s and then from before the year 0, before Christ, these accounts match up, and these personalities are still the same. It's unchanging. You have the self-preservational versus the self-destructive. Now, you have to self-destruct in order to reshape and rebuild. You have to destroy what is. And that's why the left seems to be so dangerous, but I have no fear of them. I think the left is necessary. The people who are chaotic, who want revolution, who want change, I believe they're necessary parts of the human condition. And I also believe that the people who are more orderly, people who respect law and order and want things to be stable and preserve something that might be good for most people, I think they're also necessary. And I think the United States is good for most people. It's the most attractive nation in the world. It's that good. People are running screaming from their own failed cultures to the open arms of the United States and all of the European countries. Canada, everywhere where the white man established nations in the height of Christianity, people are running from their own cultures and nations to those nations. And the data, migration data, proves that. So you can say whatever you want, but you can't argue the data. Now, this eternal battle between self-destruction and self-preservation helps us be a very dynamic creature as opposed to a hive mind or a herd mentality. And I find it shocking that a lot of you want to be a hive mind or you want to be a herd mentality just so nobody is arguing or fighting. You want to neuter the human. So I believe that many people on the left desire us to be a hive or herd mind. That's why they censor people that disagree with them and hate almost the entire U.S. Constitution and the rights that it provides to keep us free and able to speak freely and move freely and to be able to protect ourselves from tyrannical people and tyrannical groups, such as a group that forces you to wear a mask and forces you to take many experimental vaccines that might be nefarious, all while being dead wrong about everything. They were dead wrong about everything, and that has all come to light now, but at the time, they were being a totalitarian group that forced you to wear a mask and forced vaccines into you. And they have no shame in doing what they did. They don't say sorry, and they still believe that they should steer society's directions. What I believe is they need to get their hand off the wheel for a while so that other people can stabilize the ship. Because there's larger waves of germy things on the horizon approaching quickly, manufactured intentionally and planned out for decades. There's now evidence of this surfacing from doctors speaking to the European Parliament. Several of these doctors tried to warn everyone 10 years ago in the European Parliament, but nobody listened. Now consider this. We have very large groupings and divisions of religious people that divide themselves from others that they disagree with about spirituality and morality. Then inside of those larger religious groupings, they create sects and denominations to stand with like minds and oppose other ways of interpreting the religion. They group up with like minds. For example, Hinduism has two main branches, Vaishnavism and Shaivism. That is also not fake. It's not smoke and mirrors, and it's not malevolent. It's not a bad thing. And we are free to find like minds and group up with them, then name or label our groups or have others label us that are distinct from others. And we have minds in this world that lean more towards chaos. And then we have minds that lean more towards order. I see humans that love chaos and love destroying property, hurting humans, and all of this stuff because they believe they're revolutionaries. And they believe it's a good thing they're doing. If you're hurting people and destroying property, it's never a good thing. You're an agent of chaos and evil. Don't hurt people. Don't destroy. Revolution can come rationally. And actually, change does come rationally if we have rational conversations. But the left doesn't allow that nowadays. If you don't agree with the left, you're the enemy. And it's even clear that people are wildly different, chaotic and orderly, just within one single family unit. You'll have one single family, maybe that has 4 children, and all 4 children are massively different in their mind and in the way they carry themselves. In my family, I have 3 siblings, and we're all wildly different. None of us are exactly the same. And we all have different ideas. It would be clear in an atheist convention, and it's also clear in any place of worship. They're not all equal within a group, but they group up because it's easier to gain power necessary to steer a culture if a large group of people are unified to steer it that way. That's why we group up like this. And if people were forced to think the way that the most powerful want them to think and speak, and it would be highly oppressive and totalitarian. Well, I mean, there would be order, but well, I should fix that, what I just said. There would be order, but it would be that order would have to come through a high level of totalitarianism and oppression and suppression and censorship. Kind of like the CCP, the Chinese Communist Party. They have to be completely totalitarian, shut down dissent, censor everybody, surveillance, high levels of surveillance so they can pluck you out right away when you try to question things, silence you and your whole family. And we don't want that here in the West. We want more of a freedom. Now, what I see from the modern left is that they hate borders, they hate groupings, but they are a group themselves. And they're unified, which is part of their hypocritical nature. Do as I say, not as I do. That is the left. They're like, oh, why do we even have these groups and divisions and borders and blah, blah, blah. But they themselves are a clearly defined group with clearly defined ideas. Now, as I observe modern humans in real time and study historical accounts, these two mindsets, chaos versus order, revolutionary versus conserving or preserving, they're in an eternal battle for dominance all throughout history, which is how we change and don't remain stagnant. So that's why I don't view it as something that's a negative. I view it as a positive. But once you're hurting people and destroying things to make that change, you're showing your evil nature. If you can't change things with rational argument, proof, and data, then your only resort is to be evil and hurt people and destroy property and rip up the foundations of things using those tactics, terroristic tactics and totalitarian tactics. It's similar to the way that religious people, they battle for dominance. It's a very real thing that plays out right before our eyes everywhere. And some of us are essentially alone in thinking that this duality of chaos versus order is one of the most beautiful, important parts of creation. Whether you want to look at it as nature doing it randomly or by the word of God, the way you view things becoming this way is irrelevant to it being this way. the way it became this way is irrelevant to it existing. You can ponder all you want how it got this way. You'll never get to the source of how it got this way. Now, there are a lot of people who are trying to claim to be middle of the road, and they're trying to ride the fence that doesn't even exist anymore, and the road has been dissolved by the left. And what they have to do is mental gymnastics. They have to perform mental gymnastics and contradictory word salad to have that position nowadays of being a fence rider or middle of the road guy. So they have to both oppose and support all socio-political issues. And it's funny to watch and hear. The day the middle of the road guy gives a clear, short answer to any topic or any important socio-political topic that people are talking about, they get booted to one side or the other according to their answer. So they try very hard to not speak clearly or honestly or give short, clear answers, because that will get them booted if they give a short, clear, direct answer. Now, the best way to tell if someone is deceptive is the length of their answer to a very simple question. Now, they're going to say, oh, there's a lot of gray area, a lot of nuances. Can a man be a real woman? There's not a lot of gray area. There's not a lot of nuance. Can a man be a real woman? Can a woman be a real man? If you have to have a long answer for that, you're being deceptive, or you're just insane. So they have to speak many paragraphs to say yes or no to a very simple question. Now, Elon Musk and Joe Rogan are two great examples of people being exiled by their former ideology. And they were trying very hard to ride the fence for the longest time because they were self-proclaimed liberal minds. But their opinions on just one topic usually got them booted off the fence by the left. The leftists of today have gone bananas, and they're booting out anybody that disagrees with support of the new self-destructive progressive policies and communist ideas, or socialist ideas that lead to communism. So they said, Mr. Rogan and Mr. Musk, you can't call yourself a middle-of-the-road guy anymore. And they exiled them. And this is how the left has dissolved the middle ground and burned the fence that people used to sit on. The same thing happened to liberal minds like Russell Brand, Jordan Peterson, Bill Maher, Andrew Tate, and countless others that the right has taken in during their exile. These people were liberal minds. These men were liberal minds that opened the door to the madness we see today. For their entire lives, they held the door open for all these progressive, self-destructive movements, socialism, communism, feminism, skin color obsession, crotch obsession. These were the liberal men that opened the door to that. And many people were that way. But they didn't see any of this coming. They couldn't see what was coming around the corner and about to enter the door. So as the left has shifted the entire political spectrum, these people find that they are now standing on the right, even though they've been standing still the whole time, and they're still the same people they were 10, 20 years ago. They have the same liberal mindset. They're now just exiled. So they remain liberals who are the kind of people that allowed the left to begin dragging the entire spectrum into cuckoo banana land. And so much so that the conservative of 20 years ago does not even exist anymore. That's how much they have shifted the whole game board. Groups like Antifa, feminists, LGBT, BLM, Marxists, socialists, communists, and all of the supporters, the normal everyday people that are your friends, family, neighbors, and coworkers that support those movements have shifted this game board completely into crazy land. Now, many of these men promote drug use to their audience. And that is not the mind of order and conservatism. That is the mind of chaos. and self-destruction. But since they disagreed with leftist agenda on one or more topics, the leftists disowned them. The liberal establishment disowned them and relabeled them as conservative right-wing extremists. They're not conservatives, these guys. They are liberals that got tossed out from their own tribe. The same way that I believe that the right needs to toss Andrew Tate and other characters like that out of that tribe, because he's not a good person, and there's proof that he was a digital pimp and teaching other men how to be digital pimps and degenerates, use women as commodities, and has no respect for women. It's sort of like the same way that a religious group will remove certain people from the church if those people don't follow the group rules, or if they cause a power loss, or if they're diminishing the face of the religion, if they're messing things up. So the left cannot allow opposing opinions to remain in their religion, so to speak. They want a hive mind. They want a totalitarian system. So all these self-destructive liberals are wearing conservative labels now that the left itself slapped on them. So I have more conservatism in my pinky finger than all of these men put together. These men have not changed. The entire spectrum has been dragged off of its foundations by the cuckoo banana people that support leftist policies. That's your mom. It might be your mom. That might be your dad. It might be your coworkers, your cousins, your siblings, all your friends. You can see how many of them support all of these progressive movements. That's leftists. They are leftist supporters, agents of revolution and chaos, and they have to destroy in order to reshape and rebuild. And that's why it's essential to demonize and hate the straight white man, especially the straight white Christian man. That is the most demonized character on the earth right now for a very specific reason. You can't destroy the foundations of all the nations that he engineered unless you demonize him fully, so that everybody is okay with destroying those foundations, even though they're the most attractive nations in the world that attract the most people when they're desperate, downtrodden, or they're being hunted, wiped out of existence. Guess who has open arms for all those people? The European-based Christian Foundation nations that the Christians engineered. Now, the left is the most intolerant grouping of people that I've ever seen in my life. And that says a lot, because I study religions and I've debated religious people from most cultures. And even religious people will at least allow you a moment of disagreement. They'll allow you a moment of weakness. Then they'll work on you to save you. They're not just going to immediately catapult you into exile, the way the left does if you disagree with them. Which I have no problem with the left doing that. Do what you guys do. You want to catapult people out if they're bringing about a loss of power in your movement? I understand. I don't hate you for that. I actually love leftists. And I love people on the right. I love both liberals, progressives, conservatives, right-wingers. I love everybody. I'm cool with everybody. But I don't like liars. I don't like people who are disingenuous. And I see that more on the left. So that's why I come after the left. And that's why I'm showing you this history lesson, to show that it's timeless. They always have to lie and use people's prejudices and their primal desires to make change instead of rational argument. I'm somebody who likes rational argument. I like logic. I like order. So now I sit where I sit. Now we're going to talk about being religious. Now, being religious does not make one a conservative. Religious people today, generally speaking, do not follow the rules of their own religions. It's all a big loosey-goosey thing that lends itself to nobody taking any of our religions seriously anymore. Now, gaining new recruits for all of these religions is going to become increasingly difficult for them, because all humans can see in real time that not many of them follow their own rules, and that the materialistic, hedonistic, self-indulgent world is slowly removing their spiritual armor. Spiritual armor is like a t-shirt nowadays. It's useless to wear in battle, when it used to be a full, battle-ready armor suit from head to toe that nothing could penetrate, especially materialistic desires and desires of the flesh. Now, I see chinks in the armor of every religion, and some of our spiritual philosophies in the East lead to hedonism, materialistic values, self-indulgence, debauchery, and ultimately self-destruction of a population. That's what I think about the Eastern religions. That's why so many people leave those places for other cultures and where other religions have engineered the nation. They leave those Eastern cultures to go to more stable ones, or ones where they can prosper more and have more stability and order. My point is, being religious doesn't automatically make you conservative, especially if you're in one of the Eastern religions, because some of the religions promote self-destruction and hedonism, self-indulgence, debauchery, and all those things. The three Abrahamic religions are much more strict, but now they are forming chinks in their armor where it's not even effective anymore. Now, I think that's why we have such large waves of migration from those places to more free and stable places, and not vice versa. Not many people are climbing and clawing to migrate there, to their cultures. But people do claw and climb in massive waves to migrate to the West, to the Christian European Foundation nations. The proof is in the migration data. So you can think and say whatever you want, but the proof is in the pudding. Now, what I believe is that high levels of stability and order manifest the liberal mindset. Try to find a liberal or progressive in a tribal hunter-gatherer culture. Or try to find a liberal or progressive personality that the Chinese government allows to influence others. Or try to find a liberal or progressive groups protesting in Saudi Arabia for years, like they are allowed to in nations where freedom is a primary tenet of the culture. Spontaneous demonstrations are not allowed. Individuals who take part in spontaneous demonstrations are subject to a wide range of punishments, including imprisonment, flogging, and travel bans. The punishments are usually based on fatwas, or religious edicts, issued by the Commission of Senior Scholars. That's what happens to you if you protest in Saudi Arabia. If you spontaneously just try to start a marching protest, you're going to get messed up. That's why I say the liberal and progressive mindset can only exist and be manifested and created within some place that has a high level of freedom, stability for the common man. Not just stability and resources for the king. I'm talking about stability and resources for the common man. That's why everybody wants to live in the United States. We have the largest population. The United States has created the largest population of rich black people in history. There has been no nation ever before that has created a larger population of rich black people. That only happens in America. And then everybody talks crap about America and saying that it's white supremacist and all that. The only way you can say that is to put facts and data aside and have irrational arguments. And this is how the left operates. They don't have rational arguments. When you give them data, it's like throwing holy water on them. They wriggle in agony. And then they get all crazy. They get irrational. They don't know how to debate because there is no debate to have because they're just wrong and they're lying. All right, so in the USA we have Antifa, feminist, LGBT, BLM, Marxists, socialists, commies, which are all movements residing on the left side of the aisle, and there is no mistaking that. They're burning and screaming and having temper tantrums over lies. They are slowly destroying our country, and history proves that the left's plans are made by societies that are centuries old. It's like I showed you the Fabian Society, centuries old, still making plans for the left. And if you want to see something interesting about their history, go check out my top 5 lies about Native American history video. And you'll see I go deep into the Fabians. So all these arms of the left, they still have websites online right now that say they're making plans for the left, and you can see that it's all about diversity, inclusion, equity, and all the lies. All the skin color and crotch obsession, and all that comes from these leftist, centuries-old leftist arms. So the leftists manifest fear and boogeymen using lies. Demonic, malevolent lies that I proved comes out of their mouths in many of my previous videos in this playlist. Now the right manifests fear stemming from real, provable problems that liberals create by believing they can reshape the culture to be better. But they always wind up wrecking a culture slowly over time, and it becomes something like the Chinese Communist Party. That's what's going to happen here if leftists, progressives, are able to get their way. It's going to become like a totalitarian state. And it's like 1984, where there's just going to be massive surveillance to pluck dissenters out of the society, exile them or kill them off, whatever. Now, another way you can tell that their political movements are nefarious is that people who complain about humans being the cause of changing weather patterns because of fossil fuel usage and carbon output, here is how you can tell they're completely full of crap. They never yell at the worst offenders of pollution and carbon output. They only yell at the white man's countries, which when compared to other superpowers' carbon output are not that bad. When you compare USA pollution to China's, USA is not that bad. And then India is third place right under the USA. Nobody yells at India. None of these white liberal activists are saying a damn thing about China or India. They just want to disrupt and destroy the foundations of white Christian foundation nations. And then if they did try to go to China or India, well, maybe they can get away with it in India. But if they go to China and try to pull this crap, bye-bye. I don't think you're going to be seen again if you make too much trouble over there. So that is clear evidence that they've been conditioned and trained to hate just one group of people and try to destroy just one group of people. And even white people themselves hate white people. It's the craziest thing to see. And that is very sad when a person hates themselves and their entire race, their entire ancestry, over a bunch of lies. So if they're not going to equally hold everyone's feet to the fire, it proves that they have loyalties and deceptive agendas that are based on race and culture. The liberal can only flourish where relative freedom already existed. Then the liberal mind wrecks that freedom and culture using progressive movements that must oppress and stifle those that do well, so that lazy people, crazy people, brainwashed people, hopeless people, substance abusers, and underachievers don't slide too far behind. We have to drag dead weight. We're dragging so much dead weight, and our bar is being lowered so far down because of leftism. Leftism running unchecked. We're out of balance. Leftism has to be decreased in the United States. Conservatism has to be increased if we want to get back to a more stable republic. So they have to constantly lower the bar making the entire culture go downward instead of rising upward to greater achievements using merit and individual character-based systems. If you use merit and individual character-based systems of advancement in your society is going to rise instead of degrade. But what we're doing, we're dragging so much dead weight, and we keep having to lower the bar for everything and everybody that complains about things over lies. All their complaints it's all over the things that they have issues about. It's all over lies. That's why it's silly to let your nation get dragged down over a bunch of easily provable lies. And that's what the whole Western civilization is doing right now. Letting themselves get dragged down into the mud over easily provable lies. Alright, so the main difference between the right and the left today is that the left protects criminals and nut jobs, while the right admits they have a problem person in their ranks and punishes them, as opposed to the way the left protects and glorifies the criminals in their ranks. So, if you notice, every one of the left's martyrs and idols and everybody they burn cities down for are criminals. Did you notice? Have you noticed that? Try to find one decent person doesn't have a criminal history or hasn't hurt anybody that they champion for. Everyone they champion for, everyone they burn cities for, everyone they destroy America over is a criminal that has been self-destructive almost their entire lives, and they have hurt many people. Those are the idols of the left. Those are the people that the left champions for. If I see good people that don't hurt anybody, if the left starts championing them, people who are not criminals, people who are really decent and moral, if I see them start championing for them, I might have a change of heart. But everybody they champion for is a slime bag criminal. Alright, so real quick, I want to talk about the pandemic. So the left and the left only reveled in and felt power in forcing lockdowns and vaccinations on everyone. Today, looking back at it, they were wrong about everything. So it's either they're stupid or they're evil. And neither is good. But you have to pick one option, because how that all played out, they either had to be completely ignorant or completely evil. And neither is good. Now, after all the dust has settled, it turns out that the left was astoundingly stupid and totalitarian. But they thought they were smart and right. So that proves that half of a society can be really stupid and evil, all together working towards a goal. Now, it's either they're amazingly stupid and unaware of themselves, or they are just plain evil and they know they were bringing about degradation of the society so they can tear these foundations apart. So I'm gonna lean towards that they're evil more than ignorant. Because when you show them evidence that shatters their destructive illusions, they freak out over that truth and evidence. They censor you, or they just ignore the evidence so their movements can continue, so their revolution can continue, so their destruction of the Western civilization can continue. That's why I believe they operate for the forces of evil, chaos, and degradation. And I don't hate that. That's human nature. But I'm going to call it for what it is. Now, another thing they do is, and this is on the left only, legal and the whole split down the middle with the pandemic. It's so easy to see that we were directly split down the middle, left and right. Only the left wanted the lockdowns. Only the left wanted to force shots into everybody. Only the right was against the lockdowns. Only the right wanted the supply chains to keep going, so there was no bottlenecks. They wanted the economy to stay growing and strong, and the left was against all that the right was saying, and they were censoring people on the right. Even scientists, medical professionals, and everybody who are known as experts. But in my opinion, intellectuals and experts, they are sometimes the most dangerous people in the world. These scientists, intellectuals, and experts, a lot of the time they cause the most lies to spread, and the most self-destruction of a culture. All right, so another thing is the legal and open hard drug abuse on the streets. That's all from the left. So they manufacture mental illness and addictions. The kind of addictions that create and grow zombie tent cities and high crime zones. They claim they are being compassionate, but are too narrow-minded to see that they are multiplying the problems that they claim to want to fix. So for instance, instead of providing resources to people that cannot possibly help themselves, like people with physical handicaps, non-drug and non-food induced illnesses, or military veterans, they pass up people like that usually to go straight to giving to people that are choosing to self-destruct, choosing the bottom, choosing criminality because that aligns more with their personality. They are free to assist anyone they choose to, and that's fine. But they go into the hard drug dens and high crime zones to offer compassion and love to the most wicked and self-destructive in our society. So they multiply the problems to where stable places are turned into hellscapes. We're all watching the leftists do this in real time today, and it can only be denied and excuses made for why it's happening by a leftist lunatic. Alright, so the last topic I'll talk about is sexual self-indulgence, debauchery, hedonism. And this movement leads to the breakdown of families, the killing of millions of babies every year in the womb, the destruction of the child. If it makes it out of the womb, the child is being destroyed. Even if it makes it out of the womb, the child is then being destroyed. And the whole cheater, the sexual cheater mentality is flourishing on the left. Even though people on the right do cheat, it's an accepted practice on the left now. You can just bang everybody. And people exposing their sexual assets in public instead of being modest. That's the left. The right, the conservatives, are more modest, especially religious conservatives, because they have rules in their religion to cover up and be modest. Don't have your butt and your boobs all out on display. And so what it also does is it leads to the hypersexualization of the children in our society at way too young of an age, and so many other problems. Kids can see everything we're doing, and kids are copycats. Kids copy what adults do. And if we show them this is what we do, that's who they're going to be. It's very simple. So in wrapping up, I just want to reiterate that I love all humans of every race, of every sex, every age, every religion, everybody. Well, if you're evil, pure evil, I still have no hate in my heart for you. If you're pure good, I don't love you more than other people. So I think people misunderstand, and they think that I hate a bunch of stuff when I think they just want to hate me because of my mind. So that's why I get argued with a lot and people come at me aggressively, is because they hate the way my mind operates, even though I love that their mind doesn't operate exactly the way my mind does. I love the fact that you can't and don't think exactly the same way that I do. I love that fact. And maybe you just hate the fact that people don't agree with you on everything. Maybe that's your problem and not mine.